Hello, good evening, good evening, good evening. How you all doing? Um, thank you, Cletus, for joining in. And if you just join in, make sure you share, keep the momentum moving, and uh, hello. Good evening, good evening, good evening, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Co. Good evening. This is evening broadcast, and I know many of you will be probably sleeping. But anyway, I'm broadcast live from my Facebook and on my YouTube as well. So, the title of this evening, and I have been speaking about the Federal Republic of Ambazonian, the Southern Cameroon territory, in which are undergoing by invasion of the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun. So I still continue with the philosophy and the liberties that our people must endure, and that we must use our every avenue to succeed and to eradicate La Republique du Cameroun from the Southern Cameroon territory. I have emphasized this point several times, and we have asked La Republique genuinely to immediately relinquish their control over the people of Southern Cameroon. And it seems it doesn't heal them to understand the magnitude of this crisis. And so I still re-echo my message again to La Republique. Relinquish your control over the people of Southern Cameroon because the time is not on La Republique. And we have, it's not just me speaking, every Southern Cameroon, all of the Southern Cameroon in the diaspora, and those in ground zero. We have carefully asked La Republique to immediately and unconditionally relinquish its effort and its control over the people of Southern Cameroon. We are not a colonial territory. We are not a conquered territory. We came into this relationship. We came into this relationship as a people of genuine interest. We were not a conquered territory, but in due process or over the course of time, La Republique has had the perception that we were more of a conquered territory. But I am here this evening and reinforce my message, La Republique. The time is not on your side. I urge La Republique to immediately and unconditionally relinquish its control and its hold on the people of Southern Cameroon, the people of Ambazonian. And United States Undersecretary for African Affairs, he spoke, he traveled, he met, and he came back, and he reinforced his messages. And I asked La Republique to immediately and unconditionally respect the boundary of the people of Southern Cameroon. I urge La Republique to respect the boundary of the people of Southern Cameroon. We are not, I re-emphasize, we are not a conquered territory. And I would urge La Republique that they have learned a lesson from previous what happened to other nations. Because right now, the target is La Republique. I urge La Republique to respect the boundary of the people of Southern Cameroon. Immediately and unconditionally release all the citizens of Southern Cameroon that are being held under La Republique because La Republique has no legal authority in whatsoever to try and to arrest and detain our citizens in their country because we are people of different countries and therefore La Republique has no legal authority in whatsoever capacity to hold, arrest, detain our citizens. We have Ayub Seseko that is currently languishing in La Republique. We have Ayub Seseko and his cabinet that are currently languishing in La Republique jail. I urge La Republique, when you pay close attention, I have been broadcast this message several times, and I will continue to broadcast. I urge La Republique, respect the boundary of the Southern Cameroon. Respect the boundary. And that is the same message the Undersecretary for African Affairs. They may smile with you, but I urge you, I am a citizen in this great nation. I have lived in this great nation. I participate in this political aspect of this great nation. But I urge you to respect the boundary of the Southern Cameroon. Immediately, unconditionally, pull out your military out of Southern Cameroon. Immediately and unconditionally release all the appointed governors in Southern Cameroon. Immediately and unconditionally release all those delegates appointed in Southern Cameroon. We are willing to move ahead and reinstall a temporary system of government till a new democratic government is elected in Southern Cameroon. But I will urge La Republique to respect the boundary of Southern Cameroon, and so that is the only way we can move forward. Because as I'm speaking, the time is not on La Republique's side. But I urge them, they have their children, they have their family that are still living. If you want to recognize your family and then respect them, then you have the duty to pull out of Southern Cameroon and allow the people of Southern Cameroon to make a determination what they want and how they want it to be done. So this is just a simple warning and understanding. This is a simple warning and understanding. I urge La Republique to respect the terms of the boundary of the people of Southern Cameroon. This was a series of messages that was broadcast by the Undersecretary for African Affairs here in the US. Let's listen to one of these and the recent messages. We're going to go step by step and the terminology used in that particular message. And we're going to talk about it. And I want you to stay focused, listen, and pay close attention. This is Funton Daniel speaking here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States.
The U.S. government towards this crisis, the United States is greatly concerned with what's going on in Cameroon. I mean, we consider Cameroon a long-term friend. We consider it essential for the stability in that region of Africa. As we all know, Cameroon has tremendous potential. It has phenomenal natural resources, has a highly educated, industrious, entrepreneurial population. It could easily rocket forward in progress and prosperity and stability. So because of that, the United States is greatly concerned with events there. And the frustrating thing is a lot of this was needless. As I said, we all know the history. We all know where this is coming from. And
we all know history. We know all what is coming from. We all know. The fact is that the Southern Cameroon was never a conquered territory. Let me bring up the essential document that pertains to what the Undersecretary is referring to. We all understand the history. Let's bring the potential document, what he is referring to. In 1960, the United Nations voted to recognize La Republique du Cameroun as a distinctive sovereign nation. And the document that was tendered by the French authority, it says La Republique du Cameroun. It did not say the Republic of Cameroon. It says La Republique du Cameroun. That was the document tendered by French colonial master of La Republique and presented to the United Nations that La Republique was ready for an independent nation. That was the document presented in 1960. And in January 1960, it was voted to recognize La Republique du Cameroun as a distinctive sovereign nation. Subsequent year, in 1961, which I here present a document, Southern Cameroon was voted at the United Nations, recognized the people of Southern Cameroon as a distinctive sovereign nation. So therefore, we are two separate identity, two separate people of different identity. So therefore, La Republique in 1972, what is so-called a constitution, has no binding or whatever they vote. First, you have to understand the term that was used on that vote. One, it did not give specific. It says the wording was French, means we. And the wording in English was yes. So either way, you were voting in French or in English, you were simply acknowledging that you vote, which did not give a priority of the terminology that allowed the citizens of Southern Cameroon to immediately and unconditionally acknowledge what was voted. So this is a document in 1961 pertaining to the people of Southern Cameroon that was voted at the United Nations. So a total of 64 nations voted to recognize the people of Southern Cameroon as a sovereign nation. And that is why the Undersecretary for African Affairs simply said, we all know the history. We all know the history. That is what he is referring to. And so therefore, the fact that our people choose to come together with La Republique did not give La Republique an audacity as a to control the citizens of Southern Cameroon. And that is why we are giving La Republic ample time to respect the boundary of the Southern Cameroon. And this message is going to come on the last recent frequent messages delivered by the Undersecretary for the African Affairs here in the United States in a consultation with the citizens of Southern Cameroon. Let's listen to. Let's just get brief of the report, then we go to the real message that we are going to be talking about. We're going to break them into pieces.
The Anglophone population of Cameroon would very much like to be considered as first-class citizens, and there is a sense that they feel like, and they have felt for a long time, like they're second-class citizens. It is up to dialogue and true dialogue to move this process forward.
I'm sure you see those torture. That's a lively torture that is being perpetrated to all our citizens by the military of the neighboring country, La Republique Du Cameroun. That is a torture. And I have a series of those torture videos that I have saved or kept under archive for evidence. And that is why that being up to what I call the war indemnity. I ask La Republic to be immediately and be sure, be prepared and ready for a war indemnity that they have to pay in Southern Cameroon. Because we have got this enough of this. Because La Republic must be ready at all times for the war indemnity and the destruction they have perpetrated in Southern Cameroon. Because in this coming together with La Republic did not give La Republic an audacity, control, and the entire aspect of the citizens of Southern Cameroon. And that they will decide and arrest, torturing our citizens as though we are just a slave of La Republic. But I am here to let La Republic to understand and be ready and be prepared for eventual war indemnity. You can see this video, then before we move to the Undersecretary for African Affairs message. This is our citizens. This is our citizens. This is our citizens that are being tortured by the military of the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun. This, you can watch the behavior. Never will the United States authorize this attitude. Never will the United States authorize this attitude. But that is why I am bringing this attention to the world community to see. That's a gendarmerie that using machete to hit somebody's. You can watch. You can listen. The person speaking is a French citizen that is speaking and in torturing our citizens in Southern Cameroon. They have no legal authority whatsoever in Southern Cameroon. And the next one is just our brothers and sisters that are continue being murdered by the military of La Republic. But we're going to come to that. Let's go to
about the happenings in Africa right now. Since Ethiopia has totally changed course.
That was the U.S. Undersecretary for African Affairs. He was speaking on the gathering of the citizens of Southern Cameroon here in the United States. And he was speaking about the people of Southern Cameroon that are continuing asking La Republic, is that what we invited you for? Let's look. Those are U.S. Undersecretary for African Affairs.
thanks to the activity of the Cameroonian diaspora, by the way, because they definitely let their views be known. So there is, in effect, a civil war going on in the part of Cameroon, which formerly was a British colony, because Cameroon had been two former colonies, British.
That is what he's building the case. He's building the case against the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun. He still re-echoed the message. Southern Cameroon, the former British colony. The neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun, a French colony. The fact both of us came together in this, what I put a cohabiting relationship. The cohabiting relationship that we came together. We came together for the mutual benefit of both two nations. We did not come together as a conquered territory. Neither did we came together as a defeated territory. We came together people of two identity with similar power and with similar sovereignty. And therefore, La Republique is taking advantage of an opportunity to rock our people. And that is why we are still can go over the message of the Undersecretary for African Affairs, the United States.
In French, they came together, they voted for one country under a federation, but the federation was done away with Cameroonian president. So now the Anglophones are basically fighting for their rights, which started with very serious complaints, and unfortunately the government of Cameroon has not responded in a way that would assuage the concerns of the Cameroonians. The United States government policy, and I'll say current policy, is to recognize the current borders of Cameroon.
The United States recognize the current boundary. La Republique has its own boundary. The citizens of Southern Cameroon has their own boundary. And therefore, they must respect the boundary, the Southern Cameroon boundary. And that is why I am urging La Republique to take this message seriously, to take this message critically, to understand, because the time when the final decision is made, they will be on the wrong side. But they must be ready to pay war indemnity.
I'll say that's the current policy. As far as energy, something not a lot of people realize that out of the 54 countries in Africa, there are only 4 that are neither pumping nor searching for oil or gas, which means, as I said before, that it is an incredibly rich continent. And it seems, so far, it has been incredibly rich for colonial powers, for the governments in place.
That is exactly the true message he just delivered. One, when he talks about the colonial masters in power, he's simply referring to France and Great Britain. When he speaks of the colonial power, that the mineral resources that is deposited in Southern Cameroon and other African nations is simply the control of neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun, and the French colony, and including the Great Britain. Why is Britain? Okay, let's look at Britain. Remember, under this crisis that I am speaking, the Great Britain ambassador with the common Great Britain common secretary for for African Affairs, the Great Britain secretary for African Affairs, she talked about the opportunity of natural gas exploitation in Southern Cameroon that will give 1.something billion US dollar to the government of La Republique. One will expect whether if she was dumb, whether she was memory loss, whether she has a certain perception which I can't have the exact word to describe. But unfortunately, the British Crown, including the ambassador in the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun, should be aware that there is a current crisis that the people of Southern Cameroon has demanded and asked La Republique to immediately and unconditionally pull out of Southern Cameroon. But unfortunately, the British took concern with natural gas that will provide funding to La Republique, as though they are not aware of the current crisis that is going on in Southern Cameroon. And that is why I am bringing this attention in reference to the Undersecretary for African Affairs, the colonial masters. You all know, in the midst of this crisis, the French president, Emmanuel Macron, the current French president, was adamantly and ignorantly decided to form what they call a triangular buffer against the citizens of Southern Cameroon. First, he traveled to Chad to ask the Chadian president to send his military to form a buffer zone on the north part of Southern Cameroon so that they can submerge. Whereas the neighboring country, La Republique Du Cameroun, will come from the east side. While he traveled to Nigeria and asked the Nigerian authority to form another buffer zone so that they can submerge to the Southern Cameroon, because they knew that the people of Southern Cameroon is demanding the complete eradicate all La Republique out of Southern Cameroon. I will expect the French to have consulted his own authority on government and asked whether is it amicably for the French to intervene. Unfortunately, because he still has the perception of the colonial masters and that they can do whatever it takes and suppress the citizens of Southern Cameroon that has their land. Emmanuel Macron has his own country, which is France. He should have concentrated in his own country and allowed the people of Southern Cameroon, because you all know Victoria, where they have the sun around. The revenue that has been generated for over 30 or 40 years has all been going to support the French government and the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun. Whereas the citizens of Southern Cameroon basically has zero benefit out of it, even though it is in Southern Cameroon. And that is why Emmanuel Macron has the audacity to travel to Nigeria, Chad, and with constant phone communications to ask they should form a buffer zone against the citizens of Southern Cameroon. But I am here to let the world understand that our people, the citizens of Southern Cameroon, has got enough of this French, and that our people has determined, and that our spirit, and that we cannot in any form be living together, share the same platform or the same dinner tray with La Republique. La Republique should leave and relinquish its control over the Southern Cameroon. Because the moment that the citizen has decided, we were going to do whatever it takes, we're going to support our brothers, and we're going to finance everything necessary to submerge La Republique and to ensure that our nation, Southern Cameroon, survives, and not on the terms of La Republique, but on the terms of the citizens of Southern Cameroon. We are not a colonial territory. Let's listen to the message of the Undersecretary for African Affairs.
It has not been rich for the people who live there. That's something that we desperately have to change. So I know you would want me to give a different answer, but right now I can give you what the U.S. government policy is. But you know, as I said, we have had so much good news from Africa. Last year, look what's happened in Ethiopia. Look what's happened in the Horn of Africa. Look what's happened in Angola. More recently, look what's happened in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which for the first time in its history may act.
If you listen to the country he's being listed, they had to do with the French, because no economic freedom or policy has ever initiated by the French that allowed the citizens of Africa to be able to demonstrate their spirit of togetherness, economic advantage to the citizens. Instead, the economic advantage is to the French rather than to the citizens of Southern Cameroon, because it's a colonial territory that the benefit and the revenue generated is for the interest of France rather than the interest of the citizens of Southern Cameroon. Remember, when you leave Africa and you travel to France, they require you to pay visa. But unfortunately, when money generated by Africa will be installed in the case communautaire français because the enslavement of Africa. This is the time that I'm speaking. I am not speaking about Southern Cameroon, but I am speaking globally, African as a whole. It's time to change the culture. It's time to change the dynamic. It's time to stand and let all those old individuals that continue infiltrate the African continent as a whole to start change this culture of French influence. That French will be the deciding factor. That French is the sole deciding factor that must control every aspect of life of Africa. It's time, Africa, for the African indigenous. They must have this benefit. They must be able to grow. They must have their interests heard. You cannot imagine that there's not even a single university of research. There is more church university than a scientific research university, because the government is a government that does not provide funding for research and development. They do not provide research funding. Instead, the university concentrate on funding foreign governments and brutal dictatorship. You would expect Africa to establish higher institute of research development, university for technology, university of office, but you have university of religion, university of, I am not totally against religion, don't get me wrong, but I am simply in fact that we have to change the course of dynamic of Africa to meet the dispensation of the current world. China has already overtaken. Why can't Africa do something about it? Because the government doesn't fund the research. The government doesn't fund the university. The government basically is a fraudulent government that does not meet the aspiration of the citizens. And that is why I am here speaking. And I will continue. I don't want to take a lot of your time. I will continue with this message tomorrow. Stay tuned. Make sure you go to my YouTube, Transparency Media International. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. And make sure you share. That is how we have to get the information to the right source. Africa liberation, Africa freedom is now. We must overtake all those dictatorships that surround Africa. You all see what happened in South Africa. That is exactly terrifying. You all saw what happened in South Africa. That is not the African culture that I expect from South Africa, despite the suffering that have gone through apartheid. And they will carry on such an action. I'm sure the government of South Africa needs to step aside and have a more robust government that is accountable for the interests of Africa and those who have investors, not just that brutal system. I am sure the president of South Africa needs to step aside. He doesn't merit to be a president of South Africa. But after watching that images that is coming from South Africa, it's absolutely disgusting. But I want to take a moment to thank all of you that are tuning in. Have a wonderful night.